The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all. I am Mridul Mishra on behalf of Care Ratings. Welcome you to our webinar on analysis of state government budgets FY 2018-19. We appreciate your time in joining us for this webinar. To take you further on this, may I introduce our speakers for today. We have with us Mrs. Kavita Chacko, who is working as Senior Economist at Care Ratings. Along with Kavita, we have with us Manisha Sachdeva, who is an Associate Economist at Care Ratings. I would like to inform, as always, the discussion is in the form of a presentation which is visible on your screen. In case of queries, please key in the questions in the slot provided. Our speakers will take the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I repeat, in case of queries, please key in the questions in the slot provided. We'll be having a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. May I request Kavita to begin the session?
Once again, a very good afternoon to all. We are presenting here our analysis of the finances of the state governments at the consolidated level. To this end, we have looked at the FY19 budget of 28 states and have analyzed the same for trends in revenue balance, fiscal deficit, capital expenditure, interest payment, and debt trends. While our study provides an overall understanding of the fiscal strength and health of the states, data points on all parameters are not provided by some states, which is a limitation of this analysis. An assessment of the financial position of states essentially involves an evaluation of the fiscal consolidation measures undertaken by them. The 13th and 14th Finance Commission has stipulated the fiscal consolidation roadmap necessary for creating and maintaining a stable and sustainable fiscal environment which also promotes growth. As per the fiscal consolidation norms of the Finance Commission, states are to maintain a zero revenue deficit. The ceiling for fiscal deficit is set at 3% of GDP. The debt to GSDP target is 25%, and the interest payment to revenue receipts is limited to 10%. In addition, the 14th Finance Commission has provided for fiscal flexibility of up to 0.5% over and above the 3% fiscal deficit limit in any given year to the states that have been witnessing a revenue surplus, have a favorable debt to GSDP ratio of 25%, and interest payment to revenue receipts ratio of 10% in the preceding year. Under the 14th Finance Commission, the net divisible proceeds from the center to the states has increased to 42% from 32%. The Finance Commission has granted states greater flexibility in managing their resources and finances. At the same time, the states are required to undertake fiscal consolidation measures and reforms. States that have been adhering to the norms of fiscal consolidation are generally viewed as being fiscally strong. The budget for FY19, while providing projections for FY19, also includes an update on the financial position of states for the preceding 2 years, that is, revised estimates for FY19 and actual performance for FY17 has been provided. It thus provides insights into the fiscal health and performance of the respective states over time. The assessment of the fiscal position of states since FY17 indicates a moderation in the financial position of states in FY18 with a widening of revenue deficit and narrowing of revenue surplus. Despite the finances being tempered, there have been indications of stability in the fiscal profile of states. The 14 states that have recorded revenue surplus in FY17 have sustained it in FY18 also. Gross fiscal deficit has been within the 3% norm for most states. Debt levels for the majority of states as a percentage of GSDP has been seen to be stable, and there has been an increasing focus on asset creation, that is, capital expenditure. While overall state finances are seen to be under pressure, differential performance is observed across states. Some of them are trying hard to control deficit and debt levels, while others are aggressive on capex given the fiscal space. Key deficit indicators and expenditure towards capital assets is budgeted to improve in FY19. A closer review of the fiscal performance of the states in FY17 and FY18 points towards an overall stable fiscal position for states in FY18. Majority of states adhere to the fiscal deficit norms in FY18. 5 states had a fiscal deficit over 3.5%, which is an area of concern. Likewise, the states have witnessed a revenue surplus in FY17, have sustained it in FY18 also. Of the 14 revenue surplus states, 8 states saw a moderation in their revenue surplus in FY18 from that in FY17, while 6 out of the 10 revenue deficit states saw their deficits widen. Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, Nagaland, Goa, and Odisha have seen a moderation in revenue surplus in FY18 vis-à-vis FY17, while Assam, Punjab, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Himachal Pradesh, and Rajasthan have seen an increase in their revenue deficits. As per the 14th Finance Commission, all states are required to maintain a zero revenue deficit. The prevalence of a revenue deficit is indicative of fiscal pressures faced by the states. Coming to the debt levels, the overall debt levels of states has been fairly stable in FY18 and is thereby viewed as being sustainable. 11 out of 19 states maintained a debt to GSDP ratio below the 25% norm. Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, and West Bengal have the highest debt to GSDP ratio of over 35%. Coming to debt servicing, 10 out of 21 states had their interest to revenue receipts ratio at less than the 10% norm, indicative of manageable debt levels. The interest component is high for states such as West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and Punjab, where it accounts for over 15% of total revenue receipts. An important aspect of a budget is the total capital expenditure which is made by the state. Capex of the government is important as it adds to the capital stock of the regional economy and provides a foundation for future growth and development. Therefore, the ratio of capital expenditure on projects, that is capital outlay, to total expenditure is a measure of trust on capital formation by the state. It also serves as an important indicator of the financial management of the state as it reflects the priorities and fiscal space provided following the adherence to fiscal consolidation. In FY18, the expenditure incurred towards capital projects by states at the consolidated level has been found to be fairly stable at 14.2% of total expenditure. At the state level, there has been a focus on creation of capital assets. Higher expenditure towards capital outlay as a percentage of total expenditure has been incurred by 14 out of 24 states in FY18 from that a year ago. Among the states, Goa has the highest allocations made towards asset creation at 27% of its total expenditure, while Punjab and Chhattisgarh have the lowest at 4% of total expenditure. At the consolidated level, revenue expenditure as a proportion of total expenditure rose from 75% in FY17 to 79% in FY18. Revenue expenditure has been outpacing revenue receipts, resulting in revenue deficit in states with high revenue expenditure. Kerala and Tamil Nadu had the highest proportion of revenue expenditure to total expenditure at around 90%, while Maharashtra, Haryana, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Karnataka, Assam, and Andhra Pradesh have had a high revenue expenditure at over 80% of its total expenditure in FY18. Manisha will now take you through the budget estimates made by states for FY19.
Let us now have a look how state finances will plan out in FY19. Although there may not be any significant improvements, states are projected to have a fairly stable fiscal profile in FY19 also. As per the budget estimates, the states that have sustained a revenue surplus in FY17 and FY18 are expected to carry forward the same in FY19 also. Likewise, states which were facing revenue deficit in FY17 and FY18 continue to remain so in FY19, barring Andhra Pradesh and Assam, which are expected to record revenue surplus in FY19. Among states, Bihar is expected to witness the highest increase in its revenue deficit by Rs 19,863 crores. And West Bengal is the only state which is budgeted to have a zero revenue deficit in FY19. The state had a revenue deficit of Rs 11,006 crores in FY18. Therefore, there has been an increase in number of states that recorded revenue surplus from 14 states in FY18 to 16 in FY19. In addition to this, the revenue deficit for 4 out of 7 states is expected to see a moderation in FY19, namely Punjab, Kerala, Rajasthan, and Tamil Nadu. Coming to fiscal deficit position, 15 out of 22 states are expected to adhere to the fiscal deficit norms laid down by the 14th Finance Commission. Jammu and Kashmir is budgeted to witness high fiscal deficit of 6.3% as a percentage of GSDP, followed by Himachal Pradesh at 5.2% and Punjab at 3.8%. When we observed the debt levels of states in FY19 budget, we observed that the overall debt profile of the states is budgeted to be largely stable in FY19 and thereby sustainable. Punjab, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal have high debt to GSDP ratio. This is definitely a concern as progressively there would be a pressure on servicing the debt obligations. Within the smaller states, Jammu and Kashmir, Nagaland, Mizoram and Manipur have high debt to GSDP ratio, while Karnataka, Gujarat and Maharashtra are the states with low debt to GSDP ratio. The debt levels of states have increased consequent to adoption of Uday schemes in FY16 and FY17. Under this scheme, DISCOMs transferred 75% of their debt to the government. When we looked at the interest and revenue receipts of the states, we witnessed that the interest component is high for states such as West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Haryana, where it accounts for over 15% of total revenue receipts. The ratio is expected to remain either stable or decline in FY19 for all the states compared with FY18. States are projected to incur higher expenditure towards asset creation in FY19. The capital outlay as a percentage of total expenditure at the aggregate level is budgeted to improve marginally to 14.5% in FY19 from 14.2% in FY18. 15 states have a ratio of 15% or above for FY19. Among states, Punjab and Kerala have low ratios of less than 10%, which can be linked with the high level of debt ratios and debt service, which has come in the way of making higher allocations for capital expenditure. Whereas in case of Chhattisgarh and Nagaland, the capital outlay is low, despite the debt levels being significantly lower relative to GSDP and their interest to revenue ratios too being low. The revenue expenditure is also budgeted to increase in FY19 vis-à-vis FY18. At the aggregate level, the average revenue expenditure is budgeted to increase to 77% in FY19, which is 3% higher than in FY18. Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Madhya Pradesh, and Jharkhand are estimated to see a notable increase in revenue expenditure as a proportion of their total expenditure in FY19 compared with that in FY18. Now to summarize, in terms of revenue account, 10 had revenue deficit in FY18, of which in FY19, 7 are expected to have a deficit, while 3 would turn into surplus. This includes West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, and Assam. West Bengal has projected a zero revenue deficit in FY19. However, in the previous year, the state had budgeted for a zero. In the previous years, state had budgeted for a zero revenue deficit. However, the state has witnessed revenue deficit in excess of rupees 16,000 crores and rupees 11,006 crores in FY17 and FY18 respectively. 5 states, which are Bihar, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, and Nagaland, had fiscal deficit of above 3.5% in FY18. In FY19, Bihar and Nagaland are to move to less than 3.5%. However, attention needs to be paid on the fiscal deficit of Punjab and Himachal Pradesh. For Punjab, the fiscal deficit is projected to be at 3.8%, and for Himachal Pradesh, it's 5.2% for FY19. Coming to debt to GDP ratio, the debt to GDP ratio was above 30% in case of Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, West Bengal, Rajasthan, Mizoram, Kerala, and Uttar Pradesh. The high debt to GSDP ratio in case of Punjab and West Bengal has made allocations to capex even more challenging. For the other states, including Uttar Pradesh, the interest to revenue ratio was also low. In FY19, the same status was observed. The lowest debt to GSDP ratio was observed for Karnataka, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand, and Haryana in both the years. A larger base of GDP provides support for higher debt level in case of Maharashtra. Going forward, the sustainability of the fiscal profile of the states in FY19 would be contingent on the revenue generation ability and control of non-development expenditure by the states. In terms of revenues, the GST compensation from the center would be a significant contributor, and any shortfalls in the same could have adverse implication for the states. Also, any increase in revenue expenditure, mainly in social expenditure, could upset the fiscal math of the states, all of which could lead to lower capital expenditure, which would constrain the further growth potential of the states. With this, we end our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Manisha, Kavita. Dear participants, now we'll be taking a break of 2 minutes before we come back to take your queries. You are please requested to start keying in the questions. I repeat, we'll be taking a break of 2 minutes before we begin our Q&A session. You are please requested to start keying in the questions in the slot provided. Thank you. Hi, now we'll begin the Q&A session. Kavita will take over this.
This is the question raised by Nandini Vijay Raghavan. She writes, I have two questions. One, does state government debt include the debt of state PSUs? Two, do you consider the union government's devolution to the states adequate? The state's share of central taxes is approximately 35%. Net transfers to the states, which include loans and granted aids, was around 55% 2 years ago. To answer the first question, does state government debt include the debt of state PSUs? The answer is no. The state PSU debt is not a part of the is not included as the part of the outstanding debt of the states. It comes under the liabilities of the state government, which is accounted for separately. The second question, do you consider the union government's devolution to the states adequate? The 14th Finance Commission increased the share of states in central taxes from 32% to 42%. Although they increased the tax component here, they also transferred the onus of funding the centrally sponsored schemes to the state governments. So many states feel that on net terms, the increase in devolutions from the center to the states has not been significant. It is at best marginal. Yeah. We have another question here as to which are the states that are better placed in terms of finances. To answer this, based on the adherence to the fiscal consolidation norms, that is, if they have been adhering to a revenue surplus, the fiscal deficit is less than 3%, interest to RR is 10%, and debt to GSDP ratio is 25%. The states which have been meeting these criteria include Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, MP, Odisha, Telangana, and Jharkhand. Uh, there are some states which may not meet all these criteria, but most of these criteria, and they are Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Goa, and Uttarakhand. So, in a sense, they are also fairly fiscally strong. We have another question on the impact of Uday on state finances.
To answer this question, the Uday scheme has definitely added to the debt burden of states, with the debt servicing challenge to persist for a longer period of time. It won't form a part of fiscal deficit, but it will definitely add to the debt burden of the states and interest payment of the states.
We have another question here as to why capital expenditure is low for most states. The ability of states to spend on capex depends on not just the priorities of the government, but the space available after the adherence to the fiscal consolidation norms. That is, the states have to maintain a fiscal deficit of 3%. States at the same time have to incur certain inescapable obligations as well as expenditure towards social schemes. This leaves most states with less funds for undertaking capital expenditure. Typically, it's been seen that a revenue deficit pressurizes states on capital accounts because because most of the funds which have been raised are used to partly fund revenue expenditure. In a nutshell, higher debt levels, interest payments, and revenue balances are seen to play a significant role in terms of allocations made for capex by states. So the states which are better placed on these parameters are in a better position to undertake capex, which we have seen most states do not have too much of a fiscal space. There is another question here. If the state government's outstanding liabilities includes a state PSU debt, yes, to the best of our understanding, it is a part of the state liabilities. Okay. There's one more question which we can take. This is with regard to what are the concerns for state finances in FY19. The state finances or the state's revenue position would be contingent on the revenue generation ability and the control of non-developmental expenditure by states. In terms of revenues, the GST compensation from the center would be a significant contributor, and any shortfalls in the same could have adverse implications for the states. Also, an increase in revenue expenditure, that is unforeseen revenue expenditure, namely on social expenditure, could have implications on the fiscal situation of the states, all of which could lead to lower capital expenditure, which in turn could constrain the future growth potential of the states.
I think there are no more questions coming, so we'll be ending this session now. Thank you to all the participants for taking the time out and being a part of this Care Ratings webinar. We hope, as always, the discussion was insightful, and we really look forward to your participation in future also. In case of further queries, suggestions, you're please welcome to write to us at cop.com at careratings.com. The email ID along with the suggestion box will be coming no sooner the webinar ends. Thank you and goodbye for now.